guys are here. And I just want to say thank you. All of you sharing. And again, another big shout out to Tony, because it wasn't a subject that I was going to discuss, and I just didn't know it was going to mushroom into what it mushroomed into, in terms of the more research that I did, the more the Lord revealed to me just how insidious this is. And also, I didn't know how many of you had gone through this. And so that was something that it just said, okay, what else can I do? But also, how can I listen? So when I'm dealing with somebody, I'll know where, one, to send them, two, or even just how to be able to have that conversation. I mean, I've had it before, but in listening to you guys, there's a lot that a lot of men don't get. And that's something else that I can try to bring to men who don't understand, as well as men who might be involved in this and don't even realize that they're in it as well. So that is definitely something that I just want you to think about. So you're going to, oh, let me see who else just popped on here. Here we go. Oh, we have a male here. Okay, let me see. Let me see who the male is. So we have Tony. Let's see. Because, let me see who else I got here. So we got about 4, 5. Okay. Because I did invite a couple of the guys, the ones that are regulars in the group too, because I know that they're supporters, because I wanted them to actually be able to hear as well. So we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. I'm not going to wait too long. As they come in, I'll just fill them in and we go from there. And we can talk amongst ourselves as well, because it's just, I want everybody to be relaxed. So, Barbara, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderful. I am doing well.
Gotcha. Michelle, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. I'm blessed. Thank you so much, Keith.
Not a problem. And Tony, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm running because I don't know what, I know what time zones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I figured you know, was
working out. I had to cook dinner. I'm like, oh Lord, I can't be late. That's why I'm like, oh, I need to log on, but I'm good.
Gotcha. Oh, that's T to the Y. Okay, so Ty and Ty is a social worker. That's a regular that's in the group with us also, Ty Jones. And so I know he believes he's out of New York City. So, all right, so what I'm going to do tonight, and Ty, can you hear us, bro? You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, we can't see you, but okay.
Oh, I'm always doing this. I'm always forgetting to turn on the video. There you go.
What's going on, T to the Y? How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. And the thing is, I always do this in my workshops. I go straight to the Zoom, and I forget to turn on the video.
It's all right, bro. So what I was telling the ladies, Ty, good to have you here tonight, because I wanted everybody to see the faces. They normally see the names in the chat room, so everybody gets a chance, and I'll add people as they come. So what we're going to do is that I'm going to ask the ladies 5 questions, and it's really just to get things started, to have a conversation. And then, we have somebody else coming. I'm going to be adding folks as they come in, and I'll fill them in. So we have Queen Nikita here. Hey, Queen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Good to see you tonight. Good to see you. So see, everybody gets to see each other. So now you're not just, so now going forward, when we're doing the shows and you see the names come up in the chat room, you're going to know what everybody looks like. And so the hope, again, is that, especially for you ladies, is that you're going to get an opportunity to listen and hear from each other. But also, I hope that you decide to connect once this is done. Facebook is a great way to come together, but it's another opportunity to listen to other survivors. But I hope that from all your positions that you're able to connect. So Keita, real quick, I'm just filling everybody in. What I'm going to do is I got 5 questions. Your name, what state you're in, the number of years in recovery, what your last day was like, and any advice that you would give to the other ladies here. So we're going to get ready to get started. Anybody else that comes in, I'll fill them in. So Michelle, we're going to start with you. Everybody throw their mics on mute, so this way we don't have any background feedback. And Michelle, so I'm gonna add. Well, I know your name, or whatever your legal name, whatever name you want to give. What name that you have? What state that you're in? The number of years recovery. What your last day was like before you got up out of your situation, and what advice would you give the group here, the ladies here, anybody that may see this going forward?
Okay, well, as you can see, my legal name is Rosemarie Green, but my name is Rosemarie Michelle Green. I just decided to go by my middle name. Everybody knows me by Michelle. Nobody knows me, not everyone knows me rather, as Rosemarie, but that is my name. I am in Beaufort, South Carolina. I actually was in New York when this happened. So this happened about 29 years ago, but everything is still fresh in my mind when I relive it. But I ran from New York to South Carolina, which is why I'm here. And I've only been back in New York maybe 5 or 6 times, usually for funerals or weddings. My last day that I spent there, I was afraid for my life. I was in that relationship for about 4 years. During that 4 years, I was, let me say, of course, I was beaten. I was emotionally abused. I was raped with a weapon. That weapon was actually a Phillips head screwdriver, and I still have the scar in my breast for that right now. Still, I've been thrown down a flight of stairs. I've been humiliated in a restaurant. And I just want you to know that even though all of that happened to me, I still went back. It took me about 4 times, and the 5th time was the charm, because he basically, I sat down with him and I told him that, we're adults. You don't have to put your hands on me in order to, in order for us to have an argument or a conversation about something. And he told me that what was good enough for his mom was good enough for me.
Mm.
So that let me know that his mom was in an abusive relationship. By this time she had passed. And I basically told him, well, if you don't want to do that, then I'm going to have to leave. And he told me that if I can't have you, no one can have you. And I knew exactly what it meant. So at that point, I became fearful. I plotted to get away. I think this was like a Sunday or a Monday, and I think that it was, I was getting paid that Friday. So the love that I had for him, I stayed as long as I did because I loved him. And that love actually turned to hate, and I started sleeping with a weapon underneath my pillow. Mm. In order to get through the rest of it, because like I said, the hate was welling up inside of me. What happened was that he had to take his son to the hospital because he was having a procedure. And then he went to work. He worked in New Jersey. I lived in New York City. So I knew once he got there, it would take him some time to get back home. I had rented a car the day before and I had contacted a girlfriend, to drive with me, to bring the car back. And I basically threw everything that I had, everything that I could into the trunk of that car. And I picked up my girlfriend and I fled New York to come to South Carolina, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that because I know we talked about it the other night when we were on the show together. And I'm just glad that, you're here. And I think anybody that's watching, and again, I want to thank you guys for being here, and anybody that watches this, whenever they watch it, is that I want you to hear when she said she went back. So don't beat yourself up if you made that decision, because it happens. And this is another thing that it's one thing to hear me talk about it from the stuff that I might research. It's another thing from hearing it from somebody saying, I went back because I love them. Because you hear that question. And I know this last couple of weeks from people I've spoken to privately will say, well, why did somebody let that happen to themselves? And it's real easy to ask when you've not been in it. It's another thing when you've actually had to experience it and what your feelings are, what your emotions are, and how you're connected to somebody. So I definitely appreciate that. Whew, okay, so we gonna get through this roughness. I'm like, okay, so which lady would like to share? Barbara, Tony, Keita, which one who would like to share if you like? And I'm not pushing anybody to the mic if you don't want to. You can hang out, it's okay.
I'll go ahead and go.
Because I know you're in a different time zone, Tony, so you go.
Sorry about the noise in the back. Okay. I'm Tony Caraway Smith. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I have 3 boys, 38, 36, and 20, 20, let me see, 29, 28. I had my first child at 14 and my second child at the age of 15. And I was in middle school when I had my first, well, actually, let me back up a little bit. My father and my parents divorced. And so with that, it was a lot of abuse in the household. I watched both of my sisters be molested by a family member. And so my parents divorced after having, all of us. It was 9 of us. And so when they divorced, I actually was house to house to house to house because my mom, she met a guy and she was all over the place. And so I was from my grandmother's, I was from my dad's, I was from my other grandmother's house. So I had no stability. And so I dropped out of school in 7th grade, never did go back. And so therefore, when I went to my dad's house, I went back to school. When I went to school, it was this guy of a friend that I knew in school. She was my classmate and I liked her brother. So he told me that he was going to take me to get lunch on our lunch period. Instead of that, he told me to follow him and he took me to a vacant apartment. And I was 14. Well, no, I was going on, 14 years old. So he took me to a vacant apartment and he raped me. And so he told me to put my clothes back on. We didn't go get nothing to eat. I had to hurry up and run back to school because I was just fresh in middle school. And so when I got back, I felt like really bad. And so I didn't tell anybody. He told me not to tell nobody. If you tell somebody, I'll get kicked out of school and, all those things like that. So I wound up getting big and I dropped out. So my dad wife realized that I was pregnant. She seen, she worked at a pregnancy center and she seen that some signs of me being pregnant. So she told me, you have to get a physical if you want to stay with us. But she just didn't want to tell me. She knew. So I said, no, I want to go back home to my mom. And so I went back home to my mom, a lot of abuse there. And so I was approached by one of my brothers and I had to fight off of him. And so I never did get, molested by him, but I had to fight. And so it was normal in our household for incest and abuse. So after that, after I had my first child, I met another guy. And when I met him, me and him stayed together and he was abusive. He stabbed me in my hand because he was on drugs. And so when he stabbed me, the police came and he had to move out. When he moved out, his friend that was working with him came and picked him up, but then his friend would come back to the house after he moved and I wind up dating him. And he was abusive to me. So he's the one that was really abusive to me to where he took the fire extinguisher, he sprayed it all on me, he beat me. He beat me in front of my grandfather. And so it's been over 30 years now since that happened, but I never forget about it because I'm too like yourself, Michelle. I did go back because I loved him and he was attractive. he, he was the first person that really told me he loved me, and I believed it. So, but when he beat me so bad the last time in front of my grandfather, I had enough to where I called the women's shelter, and because I really didn't have anywhere to go because, my family wasn't stable. So I called the women's shelter, and they sent a cab for me. And then I left and went to San Antonio after my time was up at the shelter, because they require you to do so much and you can't go nowhere. You can't make calls. And I wanted to talk to my mom, but you can't let nobody know where you're at. So I moved to San Antonio. And when I moved to San Antonio, he got married. So I felt comfortable coming back to Houston. And so when I came back to Houston, I met this police officer, and he almost shot me. So I've been through a lot. I mean, I just like have so much, because it's so much, because I to where if I talk about it, people was like, Tony, we just don't believe you. But, I just recently started talking about my story maybe about 3 years ago, because I was so embarrassed about it, because with me having a 7th grade education, I'll be 55 this year. And so I got my GED at the age of 46.
Okay.
And I tried like maybe 7 times, and I kept failing. And I finally got my GED. So I wrote the book, and I did a stage play. And so right now I'm just like in a situation to where I would just really want to help people. I got my certification for Christian counseling. And just to end it off a little bit, because it's so much, when I got married to my husband over 26 years ago, it's like I couldn't accept the fact that he was such a gentleman, into where I wanted him to argue and fuss with me. It wasn't normal for no one to treat me.
I was just about to say, yeah.
So I would do things to where he would yell at me and say, Tony, you need help. And I thought he was making fun of me, telling me I needed help. And so I then say, okay, now you verbally abusing me. And so we start arguing. So we separated, because I couldn't accept the fact that he was telling me something was wrong with me. And so I didn't know how to treat my husband, because I was expecting him to treat me the same way everybody else treated me. So we separated about maybe 6 times. And we just recently got back together maybe 3 months ago. Okay. And the marriage is perfect, because I got counseling prior to him coming back. I wrote the book, I wrote the play, and I had to accept the fact that I had issues. So that's a little bit of my story. So.
Well, I thank you for sharing. And again, when I get to hear it firsthand, the first thing I want to say is congratulations. The second thing I want to tell you is that there's people that got PhDs and other things out there that have not written stage plays or books. So you're doing great there. But I think the blessing is that you're able to talk about it. And I'm praying that your husband and you are able to keep things together. And because it sounds that you have a good handle on it. And again, I thank you for sharing, because like anything else, it's not what happened then. It's what do we do with it each day that we get up. And I think that's the biggest thing for me in the last 2 weeks, was focusing on the recovery, focusing on the surviving, and then how do I help someone to continue to do what's going to help them to remain positive. That's why I keep thanking you for asking me to talk about this, because it wasn't on my radar. But then once I get focused on something, I want to know more, because then I start thinking, who else doesn't have a voice? Or who else might be on my page who's like, I wish I had someone to talk to about this. And if I can be that conduit to say, well, I can hook you up with Michelle, or I can hook you up with Tony, and we're going to hear from Barbara in a second. And I hope Keita comes back too, because she has a story that I think is interesting. And I'm glad Ty is here too, because Ty's a social worker. And Ty is very opinionated, and I love it. But the good thing about it is he's a person that speaks to a lot of people. And I think as men, we need to hear this too, because then the idea for me is what role, and in my book, From Gigolo to Jesus, I talk about my dirt. And I talk about the hardest thing now is being a man of God now and looking back at what I did and realizing the damage that did because of how I behaved. It's what pushes me to try to do what I do now, because I know there's women dealing with men that I used to be, just like I know there's men out there that you ladies have dealt with that are still out there now doing what they do. And how do we create those conduits? How do we open up the door for people to be able to get to their last day? And If they go back, okay, but we want to, and you had mentioned about a death. And I think these are the things too, is like, how do we prevent it from getting to a point that somebody's life is taken when there might have been help that could have arrived before that? So that's the reason why I'm just so glad that you're sharing, and I appreciate it, and keep sharing. Because the more that you share, the more comfortable you'll get with hearing it. And also other things will come to the table that you'll be able to share with folks, and you don't know where those seeds are going to fall when somebody else goes, oh my God, that was me. Or, oh my God, somebody else, I thought my story was crazy too. That's why I don't say it. And the crazier it is, or you think it is, actually the better it is for somebody else, because this is why in AA and NA, the best counselors are the ones who stand in front and say, I've been clean 30 years, but before I did, this is what I did. Because that day one person sits there and goes, oh my God, the things I did last night. But then someone stands in front of the room and says, I've been clean for 10 years, but this is what I used to do. That allows them to come back and feel comfortable. So thank you so much. I appreciate you for that. Barbara, you want to add something tonight, or you just hanging out to listen tonight?
No, I want to share.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So the floor is yours. Go right ahead.
Okay, my name is Barbara Wilson. I now go by Barbara Jean Wilson.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. From the age of 8 to 13, I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and human trafficking.
Wow.
And I guess, you know, one of the things that I want people to know about that is it's not always strangers. I was trafficked by my mother. And I remember the first time it happened, it was with her boyfriend. And I had told her, and she had said, don't tell anyone because that's how the rent is getting paid. And they would bring, you know, men over to the house. And so from the age of 8, they started feeding me drugs, started feeding me alcohol, and they would just do whatever it is that they wanted to do. And the things that were done, no human being should be put through that, not even an animal. It tore me up for a long while. And as I got older, my mother threw me out of the house. And the only way that I knew how to survive was what I was taught. And that was to sell my body and to continue in the drugs and the alcohol. And, you know, I became pregnant, 15, had my daughter at 16. And it was only by the grace of God that someone stepped in and took her from me to take care of her, which it was a good thing for her, but not a good thing for me, because it allowed me more freedom to do what I was doing. And what stopped me, and I probably was 19 or 20, was I OD'd. And in the process of ODing, God had come to me and he said, enough is enough.
Amen.
And I remember looking at God and saying, if you help me through this for the rest of my life, I will share my story. I will go wherever you send me to share my story to help others. And just like the other ladies that were speaking, you know, I had dropped out of school. I was actually kicked out of school at the age of 14. But I did go back and get my GED. And then at the age of 50, I went back to college and got my college degree.
Amen.
And in 2003, I wrote my first book, Youth But Now I Speak. And I just finished my second book, which is actually with the typesetters. And that one is titled Blessings After Going Through the Valley. So God has opened up so many doors for me to go and speak and share my story. I retired March 31st of this year, so that I could focus on, being a motivational speaker and just going where God is leading me. And one of the things that, I want people to know and to understand, for me, how I got through my healing, how I'm able to share, how I'm able to move forth. I had to forgive my mother. I had to forgive the abusers.
Yeah.
And when I'm out speaking and people ask me questions like, how can you forgive your mother when she did that to you? And I told them, I said, because I read the Bible every day, and that's my Father speaking to me. And he's telling me, you have to follow my words. And in the commandments, it says to honor thy mother and thy father, that your days may be long on this earth. What she did was wrong, but I still had to honor her. I still had to love her. I still had to forgive her. And before she died, we sat and talked, and she asked me for forgiveness. And she said, I destroyed your life, and it's time for you to live. She says, I just have one question. How could you love me through all of that? And I said, because you were my mother. And
There you go.
if I had to go through that to protect you, because see, her boyfriend was beating her.
Yeah.
And so when she said that's how the rent is getting paid, my saying to her was, if I had to go through that in order for you to keep a roof over my head, then that's what I was supposed to do, be obedient to you. Would I ever do that to my daughter? No. I was very protective of my daughter. I actually, when I got my daughter back, she was 5 years old. And the one thing that I didn't do, because my whole concentration was on her, I didn't date. I didn't bring anyone around her because, number one, it has a lot to do with trust. But number two, not to say that all men are abusers, but when you have been abused, that's the first thing that runs through your mind.
Of course.
So, and my daughter, when she was born, and to this day, she has her smile lights up a room. And that's a smile I always wanted to appear, never wanting to see any sadness on her face. And she was the first person that I shared everything with. And my daughter, her name is Tawana, she was the one who told me, you need to write a book and share your story. Because, Mommy, you can help so many people. You can bring hope and healing to so many people. And you have nothing to be ashamed of. It's not your fault. And you can begin to live your life. And
the mouth of children.
And God has blessed me last Friday to turn 65. So he's just been doing some marvelous work in my life. I received a call last Friday from the National Children Protection Task Force to become their advisor, to help them to see what it is we need to do and how we should do it when we're approaching victims. And because we look at them, as just people in the street, but there's a story behind it. And I always tell people, when you see them on the street, they're not out there because they want to be.
Yeah.
They're
True.
forced out there. And
True.
all they're looking for is for somebody to help them and to just take the time to not judge them, but just listen to them. So that's who I am. And I'm a survivor now. And when I speak, I let people know I was a victim, but I'm no longer a victim. I am a survivor.
Amen. Barbara, thank you so much, because that is part of why we're all here. And I think what you can hear in all of you is, once you got through the storm, it wasn't just, let me stop right there, that's it. It was, let me try to put back pieces that was taken away. And I think this is where, and I hope anybody watching this will understand where faith comes in, because you need something that's going to bridge that gap when you're not sure what happens. And as a man of faith myself, I don't look down on those that don't have it, because they may not understand the power that it has until they need it. And it's like, so what I do when I go out to talk to folks is this right here, is to try to get as much, because I think we don't talk enough anymore because of social media. We tend to just throw stuff up and we judge by what we see. We're not on the phones. And then you said something that I thought was very important, is when we see people out in the street, and I used to say this all the time, and I used to say it when I teach, and I'm going to ask Ty something because he's in schools like me, is that I used to say, the numbers say some of y'all ain't going to make it. And I don't know which one, so I got to go hard with all of you to try to help you get there, because no one sat in their second, third, fourth, fifth middle school and said, oh, I can't wait to be out on the street. I can't wait to be in selling drugs. I can't wait to be on the pole. I can't wait to do whatever. But we know that it happens. And so what I used to try to explain to kids, I used to be very real, because I felt that kids were flexible enough to get it and understand it if you came honestly. And my mentor used to say, my mentor told me when I first started teaching, he said, you want to last for a long time? I said, of course. He was like, don't F with these kids' minds and mean what you say. He said, if you do that, you will last a long time. And I spent 22 years, and that's something I never did, was lie to children. And that was something I made sure that they always knew my room or wherever I was a haven, because I always knew there were things going on at home that a lot of us didn't understand. And I think with this skin color, we know what that brings in a lot of situations. And a lot of folks don't understand that. So they almost penalize us for having this skin color, not realizing that a lot that we have to deal with just on an everyday basis. So Ty, I want to ask you, when you're dealing with kids and they're in this environment, or they're coming to the table dealing with the things that you've seen, how do you go about, what's your process in trying to be that for them? Because I know that you're very vocal when you come on your page and when you come on Instagram and just let folks know what your days is like and stuff like that, other than when you're eating. But how do you present yourself to the kids to let them know that they're safe when they come to you? Because I know this is something that you've dealt with as well.
Yes, certainly. I would like to say that I've worked with parents right now doing my new job, and I've been there for 2 years, but majority of my career, I work with the youth. And how I could gain their trust is that to some degree you need to speak the same lingo as them, because they know, they're from the inner city, I'm from the inner city, so we had that common bond. And I noticed when I worked in a high school, I speak to the teenagers the way I would speak to. Sometimes you mix with a little bit of realism, but at the same time you got to use patience. And it's also the way how you speak to these students. I noticed the teachers will go in hard, say, you're late, where have you been? And I'm saying as if that's not how you get in a child. These teenagers always going through rough situations, whether it's at home, whether it's from the streets. They're looking for a safe haven. For a teacher to go at them like that, that's another statistic in their mind. Oh, that's another person that don't believe in me. That's another person that's going to bring my confidence down. But when they meet me, I would say, okay, let's step to my office. I know I realize that you're coming late. Talk to me about your problems or whatnot. I got some snacks. I got some juices. Let's talk for 15, 20 minutes. I even write you a late pass to your teachers. I know some of them will take advantage. I get that. They will try to run circles, but they feel more safe. And matter of fact, it's twofold. One is the student itself, but also is the parents. More the parents reach to me by phone, by email. I even had one parent came up to me and said, is it possible I could come? I said, you could come in. I don't care if it's PTA or a regular day. You could come. My doors are open policy. You can come as many times as you wish. Morning, afternoon, doesn't make a difference. Because there are certain days that I think The students are being observant of this, especially, I would say, in the middle week, Wednesday and Thursdays. I usually finish at 4. I don't leave the school till almost 6. And after 4 is when I speak to the students about how's their day, do they need help with their homework. They do online homework as well. I remember one student that was very smart but struggled at probability statistics. And she said that she felt dumb. I said, You say, hey, we working this together because this is a we thing. I'm not going to have you stranded. I know this may be a little bit out my area because I didn't go to school where there was Common Core. So you teaching me and I'm teaching you, but we're going to build this together. And next thing you know, her grades went up in math. And she actually thanked me for being there, not judging her, not always getting into face about why you coming late and so forth. They need an in-between of a friend and also a parental figure at the same time.
No doubt. And I think what's very important is that what you're saying is what I had to live on a regular. Being from South Jamaica, Queens, in New York is one of the hardest areas in New York City. I was from 40 Projects, which is one of the worst projects in New York City.
Really? I have family around that area. I'm from Flushing, Queens.
You're from where?
Flushing.
Okay, so you know. Yes, very, very familiar. So, and coming up, I seen and having all the family members that was on heroin at the time. That was long before the crack era, but heroin was the drug of choice. And wondering why folks are wearing turtlenecks in the summertime up to their ears and everything else. When I started teaching, I think the biggest thing for me, that my mentor being a former Black Panther, but one of the things that I thought to myself was be the teacher that I know I needed when I was younger. And I didn't realize that myself had been molested until I self-diagnosed, I think, when I was in my 20s, when I was in school. Because I was wondering why I had these memories, but I kind of didn't acknowledge them, that when I was 6 or 7, that I had a cousin touch me and other stuff like that. But what I realized is that that's what also fueled my hypersexuality with women. I'm almost like trying to prove it to myself that I'm not gay, when one of the things I had to learn was nothing's gay about what happened. I was taken advantage of. So then I realized that my animosity for homosexual men was because I was mad and never dealing with it. So once I realized that I had to deal with my own past and address that, then it made it easier for me not only to deal with everybody else, it was to let it go and to heal from it. And when you come up in environments like many of us are used to, where education, a lot of external knowledge is not there, but there's more weed and drugs and everything else that's there, you don't know what the avenue is. And sometimes it comes down to that one person to say, I'm here to help, or it comes down to you figuring it out for yourself, that this just can't be the way life is supposed to be. And then you go out and start doing the things you need to do. And I think the biggest thing for me now is, and I always say to folks, yes, I have 7 children with 6 different women. Now, you can judge me any way that you choose to. But as I say this all the time, but in the last 20 years, I've been with one woman and had 1 child. So you can think about whatever you want about my past. Somebody, this was on me. Somebody throw this over me. I don't know if we're having feed. There we go. And so, and the reason why I do what I do is because I had teachers that stepped in and kept telling me I was intelligent. And I had other folks. But I had a mother and grandmother, and my mother said something to me that stayed with me, and I lost her on the 25th of June, but she said something to me that stayed with me my whole life. She said, the projects is where we live, but it's not how we think. And I didn't raise you. The projects are not raising you. I am. And that little bit was enough for me to go home sometimes at night when I could have stayed on the block and do some things. So when I started teaching, the one thing I always understood was, you don't know who this child is going home to. You don't know what's going on in this child's home. So I was just talking to a friend that I remember when she was having an argument with her male friend, she called me and said, can you come get me? And it's funny that you mentioned Flushing, because I had to go to Flushing to drop her off. So I was like, okay, so God is speaking tonight. So when I took her to drop her off, and I said, where's your daughter? She's like, she's upstairs. She's going to come downstairs because I need you to take me back to my mother's house because I'm not dealing with him. We had an argument. But I noticed that he wouldn't make eye contact with me. And I noticed that he was at a distance. At that time, I think it was 20-something years now. I was in my 30s. He was in his 50s. Everything felt wrong. So when her daughter came and got in the car, I said, how long you been? I said, you've been with this dude about 1.5 years. I said, how long you been leaving your daughter with him? She said, a couple of months now because I work. What I said, something not right here. And she said, what do you mean? I said, something's not right here. I said, he's never met me. How come he didn't come over to the car to check me when I'm with his woman? Because if my woman rolled up with a guy and I had never met him, I'm coming right up to the car. Hey, how we doing? Who are you? I want to know what's going on. Well, sure enough, about 2 weeks later, I was in school and I got a call and she was frantic and emotional. And so I had to take the 2 periods off and I'm talking to her from my room and I'm trying to get through the tears and the crying and everything. And she said she had found love letters from her daughter to him at 10. And I wasn't the counselor I am now. So trying to fathom that was wrecking me because I didn't know whether to be angry, emotional. It's not my child, but just 10. So then now I got to try to calm her down because I can't talk to her if I can't get everything out. So I said, let me get myself together and I'm listening. And she said she had found all these letters that her daughter was hiding. So she doesn't know how long this has been going on, if it started from the time that they were dating. And I said, okay, well, you got to report that. I don't care what the situation is, you got to report that so the police will know what's going on. So she did. It turned out that her daughter was pregnant at 10. So they had to do the DNC. And I remember going with her to get all this stuff. And I remember the police were out trying to find him. And then they eventually found him. They actually had it in the New York Daily News. And somehow he got out of central booking, which I have no idea how he was able to escape from booking. And then they caught him another week later. And then it turned out that he had a whole family with children her age. And his wife had no idea what he was out here doing. And I say this because I just had a conversation with her 5 days ago. And her daughter are going through it. Her daughter has stopped going to counseling. So her daughter had just started dating a guy who was dating her mom's. And this is the 3rd time. And her mom was broken up because she said, why would my daughter continue to try to mess with men that messed with me? She said, something's just not right. And she doesn't want to go to counseling. And I can't force her to come and talk to me. But I also said to her, listen to some of the things that your daughter is saying. She says she don't feel that she's worthy of love. She feels like she's tainted. I think, what was the word she says? I'm used. So her esteem is so low. I said, there's women that she can speak to. I said, if you like, I can talk to her to at least try to push her in a direction to go speak to someone. Because one of the things I had said to the moms is, remember, if she said, I don't think anybody's going to ever love me. And I said, you got to remember that at 10, if she thought she was in love and she had to have an abortion, she may have never gotten over that because she stopped going to counseling before she actually came to terms with it. And I'm trying to get the moms to get her to talk to somebody because there's now a granddaughter who's at the same age that because the mother was molested at 15. And when her and I met when she was 19 years ago, her daughter was 4 or 5 years old. And then I said, have you spoken to your mom about, because it's a generational thing, you don't know how this is passed. And I said, but here you had a child at 15, you started at 14. Here you know what happened to your own daughter, now you have a grandchild. We got to figure this out before you pass this on to the little one who has access to both of you. And some of these men that y'all are bringing in your lives, because the young lady that I'm speaking to, I counsel with her, she's still making choices of men she shouldn't be with. So there's areas that she hasn't addressed. And I think that's another reason why I wanted to sit at you ladies' feet, to hear what you've been through and what you've gone through, because it helps me when I'm dealing with other folks that are not where you are now. And my hope is that if I can show somebody this right here and let them see that the time that it took, the ages that you are, what you were able to do once you got past it, then maybe that'll be enough to kind of move them forward to get some help. And that's the reason why when I said to Tony, I thanked her for asking me to do the show, is because I have other young ladies besides that one that some are former students who now they go, Mr. B, I remember you used to tell me if I ever needed somebody to talk to. Yes, you can always hit me up. That doesn't change. I'm still here. But I think the sheer number of young women like Barbara, like what you mentioned, that are introduced, like now that I do family therapy, some of the kids that I'm dealing with, it was their parents that introduced them to things that they should never. And then now that's how I'm called in as the family therapist. I now have to come in and try to state, has me come in to help them deal with it. And I'm dealing with a case right now tonight where the young man was abused, him and his brother. And the mother that was in the house was saying, don't tell anybody or you're going to get kicked out onto the street. So she was allowing the stepson to do whatever. Well, now one of the kids is messing with a kid in another house. And we don't know if it's been ongoing or was it a one-time thing. So we don't know if now he's doing to the child what was being done to him. And so when you guys share what you share, I don't know how to thank you for just being who you are. And I want to say to you that any doubts that you have, shred them, because God put you here for a reason. God had you recover for a reason. And Ty and myself as men, we're going to take what we hear and share that with other men as well as other women that are going to come, because I think, like anything else, your voice is not going to come void because you have something behind it. And I think it's not unusual that the three of you all have faith also. And to me, that's a critical piece that a lot of people don't give as much attention as it should, because I hear it often. And I heard the Lord's voice just like you, Barbara. I was in a motel. I wasn't at church. I wasn't reading the Bible. I was at a motel with condoms sitting on the nightstand about to get into something I should have never got into because I had already got caught cheating, but I figured I had worked it out. So we don't know where the Lord is going to speak to us, and we don't know how he's going to move us. But when he does, if we give into it, we're going to end up in better places. And so we got about 10 minutes left. Here's what I want each of you to do. And Ty, you're going to chime in after the ladies. And we're going to go back around Michelle, Tony, and Barbara. I want you to tell anybody listening tonight, give them something to go on to help them get through tonight, if tomorrow is going to be the day that they go ahead and free themselves from their situation. So Michelle, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. I do want to tell anybody who is in that situation, in the same situation, and they have to leave and they feel like they want to flee. If I did it, you can too. You can either call me, or you can call a counselor, because I am a certified counselor. So if anybody needs some help getting a safety plan to get out, you can contact me. You can contact me on Facebook under Michelle Green. You can contact me at rmgreen617@gmail.com. And it's all confidential. I can help you as far as getting a safety plan in order to get out. Because if I got out, then you can too. I didn't know about a lot of places until I actually got counseling. I was an actual. I worked in a DV shelter for 4 years, and I was a case manager. And while I was working there, I became a certified DV counselor. So I am certified to counsel, and I just became a minister, and this is my ministry. I just became an ordained minister in February. So this is my calling. If you need help, I'm there. Please contact me, and I can put you in contact with somebody in all of these 50 states to get out. But I want to give you some encouragement that if I can make it out, so can you. You don't want to be a statistic. You don't want to stay in a relationship and possibly not survive. Just please get help.
Amen. Thank you so much. Sister Tony?
I just wanted to say that if someone's out there listening that's going through a domestic violence situation, whatever the situation may be, ask yourself why you're staying first. And write on a piece of paper like 5 or 10 things why you're staying, and then determine that you have to go. And make sure when you get ready to leave, make sure that it's safe. With me personally, what I did, I pretend that everything was fine after being beat up. I'm like, okay, I forgive you, I love you, just because I wanted to calm him down in order for him to feel comfortable enough for me to say, I'm gonna go to the store. And find you an escape route, but be safe with it. Don't tell him you leaving him. Don't let him know you're leaving him. Just call a friend, talk to someone that you could trust. And then when you have that escape route, that's your door to get out. So just make sure it's safe as possible. And if you have any children, make sure your children are safe. And again, talk to someone that you trust. I've always wanted to not tell my family about my abuse because I didn't want them to judge him, because I knew I was going to be back with him. And so it got to the point to where I just had to talk to my sister and tell my sister what was going on. And so she helped me. So somebody's out there to help you. So don't stay in an abusive situation, because you're worth more than that. And God loves you, and love yourself. And if you have children, love yourself. And if you don't have kids, if you have a family, love your family, but don't settle for less.
Amen. Sister Barbara.
What I would say is to any victim out there of sexual abuse, human trafficking, first of all, take the blame off of yourself because it is not your fault. You are worthy, you are beautiful, and do as I did. Every day I would look in the mirror and I would say to myself, you are a child of God, you are beautiful, and you are worthy. And begin to start reclaiming your life. Seek counseling, someone that you can trust, because as a victim of abuse, it's hard to trust.
Yeah.
And find someone that you could at least open up to share what you've gone through. And for those that are listening, counselors, teachers, ministers, if that individual comes to you, no matter what is said, no matter what they do not take it personal. They need someone to lash out at.
Amen.
If you tell them, here is my card, call me anytime, that any time might be 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. You have to keep your word, because if they call you and you say, I have to call you back, you just broke a promise. They will never call you again.
Yeah.
They're reaching out. They're looking for help. And because their trust has already been destroyed. And no matter what is said, don't take it personal. You have to, how can I put it? A very dear friend of mine, and we've now been friends for over 40 years. And I remember her telling me that God told her that I was her assignment, and that no matter what happens, no matter what she says, don't take it personal. She needs someone that will listen. She needs someone that will build her back up. And each time, I would let it out, she would calm me down, and she would also say, once you get all of this out, I just see so much greatness for you. And I am here, and she has been there, and she has, just watched me blossom. So that's what I would want to leave with not just the victims, but also with the counselors and teachers and ministers in how to approach it.
Amen. Ty, I'm going to have you finish up, but ladies, before we close out tonight, I'm going to come back to each of you because I know that you have products. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Ty speak, and then I'm going to go back through Michelle, Tony, And Barbara, and if you have a book or a site or anything, contact information that you want to give, I want you to make sure that you're nice and loud and clear so anybody can hear it. So this way, if they need to reach you via your website, email, or the title of your books, make sure that we get those out there. Anything that you want to promote, by all means, I have no problem with it. I'm not promoting anything myself. People can find me, but I want to make sure that they can find you guys. So Ty, go ahead, and then I'm going to go back to the ladies. So Ty, you can start it off if you have anything, your last words, as well as anything that you might want to promote. Go right ahead, my brother.
Oh, thanks a lot. I don't have anything to promote right now because my schedule is kind of, I guess it's kind of tough starting next month because not only I'm working, I'm returning back to school. I'm getting my master's, so I'm still in that master's program.
Okay.
Doing well so far.
Congrats.
But oh, thanks. I would say whatever you do, I learned this from experience. Do not try anything trial and error. People will still have your back. Don't think you have the whole world to yourself and you could figure it out. I learned that the hard way. I had to jump through a lot of hurdles and obstacles. Yeah, I made it, now, but not everybody has that luxury. So I would say as far as surviving through, not only through domestic violence, but any types of trials and tribulations, reach out. I would say there's always a lot of safe havens. Mine is one of them. And also, I'll mention it twofold. As for, I deal with a lot of parents of women, and right now, actually tomorrow, I have to follow up on a client through a mental health examination. That's one of the requirements for them to get their kids back. So I have to stay abreast on that. For the ladies, always have that self-reflection and think about why you're there in the first place and imagine life without that person. I know that's difficult, but I think with the proper channels and the people that you trust, it makes the life much smoother, because I didn't have a smoother transition myself. I did everything by myself, and I wish I had that person to kind of guide me through the right direction. And I noticed when I met with you, it seems like you're how can I put this? You're the oldest brother, the firstborn, and I'm the last. That's the whole connection I guess we had. And I noticed that there's a lot of things we have in common. And my condolences on your mother's passing on the 25th.
Same to yours.
Mine, a week later.
Yeah.
Our third. So, and also, I also speak with, as far as the guys, I think the men at times feel like they don't get the fair treatment. I learned this from experience working especially in high schools, that the guys are not being treated fairly. I noticed that they are being a little bit more harsh, especially men of my complexion. And it's not only law enforcement, but I noticed some of the teachers as well. I noticed that they don't promote cultural sensitivity.
Yeah, and they don't listen. They don't listen to a lot of the young men because they don't believe that the young men could be in some of the same situations that the ladies here have discussed. And a lot of young men are scared because they're embarrassed because they think they did something wrong, not realizing that something was done to them or is being done to them, and it's not their fault. And I think that's the hardest thing. And depending on what age it started, then that toxic masculinity kicks in, because how do I tell the guys I'm cool with that something happened to me and they not laugh at me, or they exile me or treat me badly? And so I found that when you can close that door and have a conversation, you find out that it's not just male on male. My aunt used to do this to me, or my mom's friend, or somebody else. And some young men didn't know that they were supposed to say no, because older men around them said, hey, that's a good thing, not realizing that that was a form of abuse as well. I talk about it in my book, that when older women start to say, well, I can get with him because he's young enough where I can shape or get him to do things that I couldn't get the men in my life to do, young men don't realize that they're being abused, and they think it's okay, and they then take that out and take it out on young women, and now we started this cycle that really shouldn't be in place. So I appreciate your time, but I'm here anytime that you need me. I'm here. This is what we do, and this is why we share what we share, because we got to be there for each other. So when you hear me say we can fix this, it's not just a hashtag. I really mean it, because I know the power of folks reaching out and wanting to help each other, and I know what that looks like, and I know what it can produce. And I think especially folks of color is something that we got to get past, of suffering in silence and feeling that we can't say anything or that no one's going to believe us. We have to speak, because every time we do, we could save somebody's life. So I'm here. So what I want to do is, like I said, Michelle, Tony, Barbara, you guys, any websites, any books, anything that you got, by all means, let them know, so this way they know where to find you and what you have to offer, whatever you want to offer.
Well,
This is Barbara.
Hold on one second. Let's go. Let's keep it the same order, which makes it easy. We're going to go Michelle, Tony, and Barbara. You're going to close us out.
okay. Let me see. I do have some books. I am author R.M. Green on Amazon. Now you know what RM stands for. Finally. And one of them is a novel. It's called Everybody Plays the Fool. It does have domestic abuse. I do deal with domestic abuse in it, but it's actually a love story, gangster type deal. I have a poetry collection, The Passion Within, and it has a lot of spiritual and romantic stuff in it. And I also have a spiritual book, and it's called Adam Was. So it has a lot of sermons, but basically lessons that I've learned from sermons that I've held in my heart, that I hope will help others in their spiritual journey. And I want to thank you, Keith, for having us and for allowing me to share my story and my ministry. And again, I want to tell people, if they feel that they are in danger and they need help getting a safety plan together, just contact me either at Facebook, it's Michelle Green, or you can contact me with my email, rmgreen617@gmail.com.
Amen. Thank you so much. Sister Tony, go ahead.
Okay, I currently don't have a website, but first I want to also thank you, Keith, so much. I really do, for taking so much time with us on a weekly basis. I knew that I was coming into something great when I looked you up and found you, and I haven't left since. So also want to thank your lovely wife for sharing you with us during the week. I mean, yeah, really. And I also wanted to thank you, Michelle, for your transparency. You blessed me since I've been listening to you and knowing you. And Barbara, you said one thing about to the counselors, about listening and being there available when they say they would be there, because I am also a two-time attempted suicide survivor. And 2 years ago at my worst, when I called the church to speak to someone, they kept putting me on hold and kept rescheduling me. So I had to say, God, I need you more than anything, because I can't depend on nobody. And I said, I refuse to take my life because somebody just don't have time to listen to me. So I actually prayed and fast. And this was 2 years ago. My second suicide attempt 2 years ago.
Wow.
And God is amazing. And so I did leave the church, because I didn't leave it because I felt bad about it, but I felt that I needed to venture out somewhere where I could be used. So to say that, yeah, you made a point, Barbara, but I have a book. It's called I Hear You, God. I wrote this book.
There you go. Visual promotion.
Yeah. I wrote this book in despair when I was coming out of my suicide adventure. And I struggle with dyslexia. So the book is not, if somebody read the book, they might get kind of confused. But the person that edited my book, actually, I don't say anything in regards to it should have been done better, because I wanted to kind of be like this, because I wanted to be able to share my story with the flaws that's in the book. So I Hear You God is on Amazon, and I do have copies too as well. I don't have a website, so you can look me up on Facebook as Determine Your Destiny, but it's Determine Your Destiny. Yeah, so if you have any questions or anything, you know, you want me to come speak, I'm willing to come speak. And and actually I'm pro bowl, because I want to be able to bless somebody. So and I'm here, I'm available.
Got you. Thank you so much. You can reach out to me if you have any questions with any changes, anything, because my publishing company's been in place since 2010. I wrote my first book in 2007. So if there's anything that I can help with or anything like that, by all means, reach out. Barbara, you're going to close the show before I run my mouth some more and call it a night. So last but not least at all, go ahead, my sister.
Thank you, Keith, for the opportunity for all of us to be here, and for you just being so open and transparent as well. That truly is a blessing. And I also thank your wife, because you have the time with her and your princess, but you're also making a sacrifice to help others. And so I thank you, and I thank God for you.
Thank you.
I can be found, my website is www.mutebutnowispeak.com. That's MUTEBUTNOWISPEAK.com. I can be reached on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, as well as YouTube. And this is my book, Mute But Now I Speak, which can be found Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and my second book, which hopefully should be out by the end of this month, Blessings After Going Through the Valley, will also be on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and also I do go out on speaking engagements, because I am a motivational speaker. If you go to my website, there is an event page as well as a form page, or you can even send me an email, asking my availabilities if you would like for me to come and speak. I do not have a problem when it comes to traveling. I love to travel, and God has truly taken me around the world so far, and has even had me to speak at the UN. So so feel free to reach out, and if you want to share, talk to me. That's where I can be reached.
Nice. Thank you so much. So guys, I'm going to close it out this way. Anybody watching this knows how to reach me, but I'll say, if you need counseling, I do private counseling, bit.ly/Coach Keith. You go to my site, you can pick the time for a free call, and we can set up something, and I'll always adjust my prices to work with folks who might be struggling. So don't ever think that I can't afford him. There's no such thing. I'll figure out how we're going to do it, what we're going to do. But that's not my focus. I just like to end the night by putting that out there. But I want to say this. Thank you. You guys know I'm here for you. If there's anything that I can do, whether it's publishing, whether it's the counseling, if there's anything that I can do in terms of tips or anything like that that I can help you with, just reach out. If there's people that need to speak to me, send them to me. All they got to do is tell me that you sent them, I got them, we'll figure out something. And I want to leave everybody with this, and anybody watching, I want to leave with this. Love is not supposed to hurt. You guys have heard me say this on the show. Love is not supposed to hurt. The people that love you are not supposed to hurt you. And it may be confusing when you feel a certain way for somebody, but it's not getting returned. So you stay because you're searching for what you believe is there. Trust what you see. Trust what you feel. If you're hurting, then that's not love. But you don't just run off if you don't know what you're doing, because then you may end up right back in that same place. And then this time the person knows what the situation is and may decide to kill you. So when you hear the lady say they had a plan of action, have that in place. Now, I said this the other day, and somebody reached out to me and said, it doesn't take one step and you shouldn't tell the people that. I'm sorry. If you believe that, you believe that. Everything starts with one step. Everything, because it starts with a thought. It starts with the idea that today I'm leaving. Now, that doesn't mean that you leave that day. The thought is the first step. And then you plan your escape. But I would say to anybody, have faith that you can get out of the situation that you're in. Once you are out, you can make it. That is what I want you to take from all three of these ladies here. And what I want you to see from Ty is that there are people here waiting to help you. What I want you to see from the ladies is that not only can you recover, you can be placed into a situation by God where now you can create the very haven that you needed at that moment. You see this here, that they didn't just get away from this situation and that was it. They then stopped and pivoted and said, now I want to be that for somebody else. They've written books, plays. They're speaking at the UN. Wow. Michelle is actually now in working with women, saying I'm here and sharing her story. All three of these women. So you don't make the excuse that there is no help. It is. Don't make the excuse that I can't ever get away. You can. And don't ever think that you're alone. Because if you didn't hear anything else tonight, you heard that God was present from the time that they called on him to the time that they got away to right here, right now, tonight. Who needed to be here was here. Who needs to see this will see it. Now I'm going to check on Queen Nikita to find out what happened, why she dropped off. I'll check with her to make sure she's okay. But at the end of the day, I don't know where God is going to take this, but I know he brought us here for a reason. So again, I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say I appreciate you. I appreciate all the compliments, but it's no sacrifice. My wife knows what I'm doing because she knows how I feel about it. And for me, I feel I owe the Lord for the way that I lived my life for 37 years. So I owe. And so if staying up late or picking up a call at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I always shake my head, get myself together. What's the matter? There is no bad time to call me because I do know you hang that phone up, that person may never call anybody again because they may never get to speak again. I do know that, and I've gone through it. My first 7 years of teaching, I went to 11 funerals, I believe it was. So I know what that's like. So again, I want to say thank you to you guys showing up tonight. I'll probably play this in the group so folks can see it. Hopefully somebody will reach out. Hopefully somebody will purchase a book. But at the end of the day, thank you. And I'll be on tomorrow night. I'm not sure what the subject is going to be. I'm still trying to dial down the smoke from the Cardi B conversation because, whoo, Lord, I didn't know talking about sex is going to cause people to lose their mind the way it was last night. But we're going to figure out what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But again, guys, thank you so much. Somebody had to talk me into getting out here to do some more talking. I actually said, keep your voice is needed, because I had actually gotten to the point that I had kind of parked my voice and put myself off to the side. And I had to be reminded that God placed me on this planet to do some things. So you're going to see me pretty much all the time. I'm going to have my mouth open until God closes it and brings me home. So at the end of the day, thank you. So ladies, thank you so much. I will, if you send me your email addresses, I'll send you a copy. So if you want to use it and need it or whatever you want to do with it, go right ahead. You have all the rights. I have no problem with it. Because again, at the end of the day, people need to hear this. So if you share it on your page, you send me an email and I'll make sure that you get a copy of or a link to it so you'll be able to have access to it to use it in any way that you feel free. Okay?
Yeah, and I wanted to say to Ty, thank you so much for hanging in there with us, ladies, because, you know, sometimes, you know, ain't a lot of men that's going to hang in tough with us like that. So, Ty, I just want to say, and I know I'm saying it on behalf of all of us, thank you so much.
Oh, yes, you're welcome. And you're right. Most guys wouldn't really go into that because it's somewhat intimidating and they don't know how to address it. But I am glad I'm with you, with the group. I learned a lot.
Excellent, excellent. So again, guys, thank you so much. But again, like I said, just hit me up in the inbox, send me an email address, and I will send you a link and you will have access to it. And like I said, by all means, whatever form or fashion you want to share the link, whoever you want to see it, by all means. And since I'm saying that, again, I am Keith K.L. Belvin. I'm a crisis specialist, an author, father, husband, of course, a man of God. And what I do is simply try to present a way for people who are in crisis to figure out a way to get help. So I pray this helps somebody, and it has been my pleasure. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow night on Unapologetically Keith, 9:30 in the group. That is the only way that they can see us. All right? Have a good night, guys. Thank you so much. It was a great, loved it.